Welcome to the Instant Reaction podcast then. It's nice for a change. We're going to talk about a Seahawks win and a much-needed win as well. They had to have this one. They got it. The Seahawks defeating the Cardinals 28 points to 21. Robbie, what did you think of the game?
Yeah, I think overall it was, at times frustrating, at times exciting. I guess that's what we expect from the Seahawks at this point. But we definitely needed this win, so I'm happy to eat crow this week because I didn't think we were going to do it. So I'm happy that we did. I'll take it. So I'm happy. Let's keep moving forward. Now we just need the Bucks to beat the Rams.
Yeah, you're just too negative, Robbie. You see, you've got to be more positive, like I am, and predict
That's
wins.
exactly it. That's exactly it.
So the Seahawks win today. I thought it was a good performance, really overall, Robbie. I think that the return to a more balanced offense certainly benefited the Seahawks. And look, there's nothing wrong. There's no need to sort of spend. I really hope that the Seahawks media and fans on Twitter don't spend the next 12 days overdoing this whole, they ran a bit more, they need to do. Look, it's not really anything to do with that. I mean, they didn't have the running backs in the last couple of games. I think they were perfectly fine and balanced in the first few. But ultimately, you have to have a running game. I'm sorry. I know what a lot of people on Twitter say and stuff like that, and the people who obsess about analytics. And, sometimes, Robbie, some of us get labelled as like anti-analytics, which is nonsense. I'm not anti-analytics. I just think that a running game is part of football, and you need it for the most part, in order to have the kind of success that you want. And that's why even teams like the Chiefs spend first-round picks on running backs and dedicate, the Chiefs won a game in Buffalo a few weeks ago where they just ran the ball. You've got to be able to do this. And the Seahawks ran for, I think, 165 yards. Having Carlos Hyde back was a major thing. And it just took a bit of pressure off Russell Wilson. He didn't need to do everything. They got the lead. They could play off that. They could play to the fact, I think they were leading all the way through the game, weren't they? Apart from, is that right? I think they were leading all the way through, apart from when it got to 7-7 early in the game. But from then on, the Seahawks won. And look, they're not going to be able to play this way every week. They are going to have to call upon Wilson more than they had in this game in other games. But this is the way to play. And I have to say, Robbie, however well Wilson played in the games when he was throwing 5 touchdowns and doing everything, I think he plays better within an offense that doesn't require him to do absolutely everything.
Yeah, he seems to play better, and he runs the best after the play action, where it sucks guys up and you can get guys behind him and you go for that big play. So yeah, definitely beneficial to have Carlos Hyde back. I mean, he looked so much better watching him run than watching someone like DJ Dallas or Travis Homer run the football. And I mean, even Bo Scarborough, when he had an opportunity, when he ran the football, he looked pretty good. So yeah, I mean, seeing these guys run the football, effectively hitting the hole hard and, pushing the pile to get a couple extra yards it's really nice to see. My only real complaint about the running game would be the overthinking it and dangerous pitch there on 3rd and 2 or whatever it was, or 2nd and what, I don't remember what it was, but I mean, it was just a dangerous play towards the end of the game. It was unnecessary. And I think, again, these are one of those times where I get really frustrated with Brian Schottenheimer's play calling. Like, he tries to get too cute, and he almost cost us there by calling a play that just, it was, I would rather just actually hand the ball off and run up the middle instead of trying to do something cute, like pitch it to the outside. And we almost lost the football that way. So other than that, run game was great, and I'm really happy to see it.
A pitch, I really hated that play call, Robbie. And look, I think it was also a good play, but I think it was Marcus Golden who kind of read it. And if he's not there, right in the frame of Carlos Hyde, he may well have caught the pitch a little easier and got upfield. I think the fact that he was there put Carlos Hyde off a little bit, which is understandable in that situation when there's a football coming your way and it's a live ball. It's not like a catch where if you drop it, it's just an incompletion. You've got to get this ball. It can lead to problems. But they overthought it a little bit there. I prefer a toss. If you're going to do that, I prefer a toss. A toss is an easier ball to catch than a pitch. So, and it was overthinking it a little bit. And at that late stage in the game, you know what? If you run it up the middle and you get a yard or two, you just play for the next down. I mean, you're taking the time off the clock there. You've put yourself in a manageable 3rd down. I mean, if you get nothing, I think it was sort of like 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 10 or something. It's not the end of the world. Suddenly you find yourself in 2nd and 18 or 3rd and 18 or something, whatever it was, and having to give up the play, and then Russell Wilson throws it out of bounds, so you don't even stop the clock on 3rd down. So or you do stop the clock on third down. So it was a bad moment, that. And there was one or two other calls. I think it was nice as well, to be positive about the play calling, that they've actually worked out that you don't have to make every throw a 20-yard downfield throw on third down, that they're able to get a few easy throws to convert, which they need to do a bit more of. I was actually a bit frustrated, Robbie, that they still seem to be persevering with this. Mass protect everybody and just run 2 receivers on the outside, have Russell Wilson stand in the pocket forever, get good protection, but because there's nobody getting open, because you've got 2 people running a route, and he's stuck in the pocket and there's nowhere for him to go, and it's very hard to throw it away from the pocket when you've got 2 people running around. Why can't you have somebody chip and settle down as an underneath throw? Because even if you have that underneath throw and you can't get it to them, you can throw it in their direction and avoid a sack and avoid an intentional grounding. When you sort of stand in there, if you throw it from that position, you're going to get called unintentional grounding. Why can't they just have somebody, a tight end, chip and break off, or a running back just run some kind of a route after doing a block to give Wilson that option? I don't know why they can't do that. Anyway, it didn't matter. The offense was well balanced and it did well. Defensively, Robbie, there's something I want to talk about. I'll get onto that after. No, I'll tell you what, we'll save the defense. I want to get onto this first. I don't know what you thought. I thought this felt like an old school Thursday night football game. When they started doing the Thursday night games, they were a bit of a mess, weren't they? There was loads of mistakes, loads of penalties, and both teams were just rotten in terms of mistakes and penalties. They combined for 18 penalties between them in the end. And you had all sorts. It was like they were both trying to outdo each other in who could make the most stupid play. So you've got like Quandre Diggs with his unnecessary hit on DeAndre Hopkins as the ball's sailing over. If they were stood on each other's shoulders, neither of them would have caught that ball. And he gives away a big penalty on third down. They were punting in that position. It ends up being a scoring drive. And then Dre Kirkpatrick says, well, hang on, I will make that up to you. I will throw a punch at DK Metcalf or taunt, whatever they called him for, to extend a drive when you're on fourth down at midfield. And that led to a touchdown as well. You've got stuff like Jason Myers missing an extra point, but then Patrick Peterson very generously giving away a pass interference right before half-time. You've got Kyler Murray giving away an intentional grounding on his own 2-yard line. And then a safety, thanks to J.R. Sweezy, allowing LJ Collier to get into his frame on the next play. And then there was something else the Seahawks did that my mind has gone blank, that was their sort of answer to that. DK Metcalf dropping one pass on a route where I think if he caught it, he'd have been still running for the touchdown, Robbie. And also there was the fantastic face drop right before half-time where the ball sort of smacked him in the chops and he got nowhere near it. And, all those little things, the mixed extra point and the missed touchdown and all that, it did matter in the end, because that was the difference between this being a bit of a laugher and a bit of a comfortable end there where the Seahawks maybe like a couple of scores ahead and it being a 1-score game at the end. But overall, despite the sloppiness, and look, if we're going to talk about sloppy, the referees were sloppy and awful as well. They didn't help. But overall, this is up there with the Miami game for me, as about as comfortable as you can probably expect the Seahawks under Pete Carroll to play.
Yeah, one thing you said about the refs, I'm getting really tired of Russell Wilson getting hit in the head and no calls. Like that was, I feel like that happens all the time. And then that was a big play. Like that was 3rd and 10, and we were punting right after that. And guy came in and he clearly, hit him in the head, and they didn't throw a flag. So yeah, Thursday night footballs tend to still always be kind of ugly, no matter. I don't think anything's really changed too much. Maybe teams are adjusted a little bit better, but yeah, it's definitely a typical Thursday night football game. Overall, I'm just pleased that, our defense came and showed up and seemed like they were ready for the challenge this time. Kyle Murray didn't drop. He dropped back 42 times, and at least we put a little bit of pressure on him this time. And, last time he dropped back 50 times, we didn't even touch him once. So this time we definitely looked like we were a little more prepared for him. And I really liked the way we came out and played.
Yeah, completely agree. And on defense, there was some real positives, Robbie, that we need to talk about, and some issues as well. I think this is the best they've played in a while. After 2 shambolic games, they clearly played a lot better this week. They didn't give up anywhere near the yardage that they've been giving up. I was kind of thinking after the game, I was surprised that Arizona didn't run it more, but then I remembered that, the Bills didn't need to run. And I suspect that there will be teams that kind of feel this way now, that they're just going to attack in the passing game. But I was a bit surprised that Arizona didn't run, just simply because Kyler Murray spent the whole game grimacing. I mean, he was doing his best Big Ben impression of, like, just sort of, I'm really hurt all the way through the game, but never actually, leaving the game, which is a very Roethlisberger thing to do. And he didn't seem to be impacting his throws that much. I mean, he wasn't, there was no lack of velocity, at least not that I could see there. But they did put it more or less all on him to try and win the game, which I was a bit surprised about. Positive-wise, Carlos Dunlap, looks like the defensive end that they needed in March, the guy that they needed to get. And as I think you have to sort of say, on the one hand, what a great trade, getting him essentially for a bag of footballs. Was a great deal and a needed deal. They needed to get that done. And he looks the part. He really looks the part. But it goes to show, Robbie, if they'd have just got somebody like that in March, that, Carlos Dunlap, everyone keeps going, oh, this player that they could have had's got a bad PFF grade, or this player's not got any sacks. Well, people seem to forget that when Carlos Dunlap was in Cincinnati, he had a bad PFF grade. He didn't have any sacks. He wasn't even playing by the end of it. So sometimes it's just about the environment and what you need and opportunities. And I think if they'd have just got a pass rusher in March, a lot of these issues that we've seen all season probably wouldn't be there now. But thankfully, they have got somebody who can get after it and win a 1v1 and make some sacks. And well done to Carlos Dunlap for that tonight. LJ Collier has not done a great deal in 2 years, but kudos to him for a sack and for forcing the safety, which was a huge 2 points in the end, and pretty much made up for the missed extra point by Jason Myers. And KJ Wright, I thought, was also somebody who needs to be singled out, because there was a play right before half-time, Robbie, where Kyler Murray's kind of scrambled out. And it was like 3rd and maybe even a couple of inches, really. They rushed to the line, get the play out. Kyler Murray scrambles to his left. KJ Wright meets him in the backfield, and it's who's going to win this. Now, I would have, if you'd said, who are you going to put money on here? No disrespect to KJ Wright, I would have put money on Kyler Murray to get free and probably get a big first down there. But KJ Wright showed fantastic agility, brought him down, and he stole Seattle another possession there. Now, Arizona were just assuming they were going to get that 6 inches that they need with Kyler Murray, and they were going to continue this drive and try and get a score before halftime. Seattle steals a possession, get 3 points, vital points in the grand scheme of things. So I thought there was a lot of positives, in particular with those 3 players, Robbie.
Yeah, I want to single out Dunlap. How great would it must be for him, at the end of the game, getting that sack for the win, and just a completely different environment than being in a place like Cincinnati. I'm sure this is probably super great for him. But I mean, just not even just the sacks. He just was in the backfield. He felt like he was getting pressure. He just looks the part. He's playing the part. And tonight he just was all over the place, and hopefully he can continue that trend and keep going. I mean, I know you bring up PFF grades a lot, and I don't really know how they grade them, but I mean, in my opinion, I don't really care what it said about Cincinnati. I know what he did previously, and he was averaging 8 sacks a year or something like that before coming to Seattle. So I'm really happy to have him here. And this is something that we should have done earlier in the offseason, but didn't. And so this is what well, to be fair, we did. We went out and got a guy who had 8 sacks last year and a guy who had 6 sacks last year. So, I mean, they made an effort, but it wasn't the effort we were hoping. And so it was just not as good as I would have expected. But, man, he just looks the part. And, he's kind of one of those guys now you start to look at. And if he can continue this trend and keep playing really well for us, you wonder, like, do we bring him back at, whatever his cost is, or do we, give him an extension and kind of take a little bit lower hit on the salary cap.
Based on this, you have to keep him.
But
he carries on playing this way. I mean, the last
absolutely.
You can't go through Frank Clark, Jadeveon Clowney, and Carlos Dunlap in 3 straight seasons, Robbie, and keep needing to try and replace these guys. Eventually, you've got to keep one of them.
Sure. And the other guy I want to bring out, and he's a guy that I've hammered quite a bit, and it has nothing to do with his play on defense specifically, but Cody Barton, he's turning into be a pretty good special teamers. I've noticed he's been getting down there, making a lot of hits, and he's not getting all the tackles, but he's definitely causing a disruption, and you can see he's getting down there. So I'm gonna give props to Cody Barton for his special teams play, because I mean, I've hammered that guy for a long time, didn't even think he should be on the team. So if he's bringing something on special teams, that's awesome. We definitely need that, and it's helping our kick return game and stuff like that. So really happy to see him playing well.
Yeah, I think he got the highest special. Yeah, again, to go back to the PFF grades, Robbie, I think he got the highest special teams grade last week. So it'll be interesting to see if he matches that again in this game. I think there are still some issues that it's worth touching on. Trey Flowers is back to being a real struggler. I mean, he had one good tackle on Larry Fitzgerald at one point, and I think there was a couple of, maybe even a couple of coverage plays. It was a long game, I can't remember, but there were just so many moments, Robbie, where he's so far off coverage, he's missing tackles, he's like his angle to the tackle is all. There was one way his angle was all wrong, and you're always taught push the players back inside. Push the player back inside to the field where everybody else is. So even if you don't make the tackle, all your teammates are there. And there was one where he ran inside and forced the guy outside where there was nobody, and the guy just ran around him and took off for a huge gain. And he's a liability. And I don't know how bad this hamstring injury is. The fact that they didn't put Shaquille Griffin on IR suggests that they must at least be thinking there's a chance he'll get back next week, because he's been has he missed 3 games now? So if it was a serious hamstring, they'd have just put him on IR, and he would have been on IR for these last 3 games. But the fact is that he's not been put on IR, so you have to believe he's going to come back, and the sooner the better. DJ Reed on the other side of the field is doing a great job for me. I mean, you can't expect that he's going to suddenly turn into Darrell Revis. I mean, he's not going to do that. He's not going to be Richard Sherman, but he's tying up an end, and that's what you can expect from a backup cornerback. He's tying up an end, and when Shaquille Griffin comes back, he and Reed should be the outside corner starters. And I hope it opens Seattle's eyes that maybe you don't necessarily need to be so strict on the 6'3", 32-inch arm corners. If you've got a guy with a bit of quickness, I mean, I was kind of watching Byron Murphy out there for Arizona, thinking, well, the Seahawks would never draft somebody like that. But he's diminutive, he's quick. Maybe the Seahawks just need a bit of that at corner. There's nothing wrong with having a guy like that who can cover like DJ Reed's doing, and he's become a really good kick returner as well. The other player that I don't want to beat a dead horse with this, Robbie, but what was Jamal Adams doing tonight? I mean, he just seemed to be freelancing and doing whatever he wants. And there was a couple of moments where he's blitzed and he's like taking like the longest path to the quarterback and just being a useless part of that blitz. Or he's showing blitz by being up at the line and kind of just dances on the spot and doesn't actually blitz, doesn't drop, doesn't seem to do anything. He kind of just stands behind the defensive lineman. There was the blown coverage where it was his responsibility that led to the touchdown in behind him? Is he a spy? Whose fault is that? I don't know. But there was a shot. Someone took a still of Adams kind of stood there, kind of like with his arms out going, oops. And that the running back, Chase Edmonds, is stood on his own in the end zone. And there seems to be quite a few plays where Adams is kind of like going, oh, I've made a mistake. And I'm sorry, no. I mean, a week after seeing Jalen Ramsey, who just shut down DK Metcalf with a brilliant piece of coverage, the Seahawks spent more on Jamal Adams than the Rams spent on Jalen Ramsey. I want to see more. And I just want to see more from the guy. You've traded a ridiculous amount for him. He needs to be an X factor. And he's not an X factor. He was an X factor against Atlanta, and that's been it.
Yeah. I got a lot to say about this one. I'll go back to Trey Flowers first real fast. I feel bad for the guy because, I mean, the couple of those guys that he got burnt by were like Hopkins and then that other speedy receiver that they had. He's playing way too far off the line on Hopkins for sure. I don't know why they started doing that in the first couple drives. It seemed like he was pushing up and seemed to be playing okay. He had a couple of good games this season back to back where he looked like he was starting to get some confidence and get a little swagger, and then all of a sudden, he's going up against Hopkins and getting beat up. So I feel bad for Flowers, and he's getting picked on. And you're right, he probably shouldn't be starting right now. I just feel bad for the guy. I want him to do really well, and so maybe it's just the homer in me just coming out. But I feel like he gets hammered a lot, and rightfully so. He's given up a ton of yards and he's playing 10, 15 yards off the ball. So it drives me nuts when that happens. And I don't know
if nothing personal to him, Robbie.
No, I know it, but I'm just wondering if that's him, if that's his plan, or if they're telling him to drop back.
Further. Well, sorry to interrupt. There was I don't know if you've seen the Brett Coleman video And have you seen the Chris Sims? Chris Sims did a breakdown.
Yeah, I saw the Chris Sims one.
The Chris Sims one was very. I mean, it was just simply that he's not doing his job in the coverages. He's not doing the little rules that you have. You basically stay on your man, or if you don't, if he goes here, then you go here. And he's just not doing it. I mean, there was the Chris Sims one was particularly ugly because he was just kind of stood on his own, not doing anything, while they were throwing it downfield to Cooper Kupp. And look, I want him to do well. Everybody wants him to do well. He seems like a nice enough guy. Difficult position to play when you're coming in like this. They've already brought someone in to replace you. But if you're not doing the job, you're not doing the job. And like I say, when Griffin comes back, Reed seems to be doing the job. Griffin, for all these flaws, has probably got a better master of the scheme and is a better player than Trey Flowers. Trey has to, sadly, for me, go back to the bench, especially with the
and I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you that he should not be starting. That's for sure. I guess my point is he had some good games too, and then you know a couple of bad games, and then I don't know. I think he has the potential. I see the potential there. I see why they liked him originally and why they're trying to make him a corner. And I just want him to succeed. There's nothing about him being a nice guy. I mean, I've never even heard him speak to me. I was an interview or anything. So maybe he is a nice guy. I don't know. It has nothing to do with that. I just
would it really surprise you if he was a real arsehole now?
Yeah, sure.
I don't think I've ever heard him speak either.
Yeah. But let me touch base on Jamal Adams, because this is I mean, this guy's getting just flamed all the time, and he seems to be in the wrong position all the time. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't understand the lining up 15 yards back and then rushing in. Like, I'd rather see him right up on the line. If he's gonna go, then just go. Don't like dance around. I only saw one time where that worked, and that was that he was dancing back there, and if he didn't cut around the corner on the left hand side, Murray was rolling out, and if he didn't cut out, or if he had went inside, Murray had all day to go, just open field. And so he made a good play there. I mean, he is a hell of a rusher. He's a hell of a pass rusher. And I'll give him that, because you can see, there was a couple times where he, Murray's eyes would look and you would see he saw Jamal Adams. So he was worried about him. But yeah, he's a liability when it comes to pass coverage. It's frustrating. And I've made more justifications and excuses for Jamal Adams than I could possibly count. And I'm running out of them, man. I'm running out of them. Like, he is a huge liability, in the passing game. I don't mind him rushing because he's good at it, but it's like, you rush a safety and, you think about the amount of, draft capital that we gave up for him, then you start to get a little frustrated because you're like, this guy should be doing more. He should be able to rush. He should be able to cover. He should be able to do all these things. But the fact of the matter is, we're seeing that he is not good in pass coverage. And you're right. That was 100% blown coverage on him. You know, when they replayed it, you go back and you can see that, I mean, he had there was like a tight end that was coming in, and then their Chase was coming behind him, and he just didn't even split the two of them. He just like ran up forward, like going after Kyler, and it was ugly. It was all around ugly. And I remember I saw that, I was just like, oh man, that was just terrible. And I knew we were gonna have to talk about it. And so, yeah, he's a huge liability in coverage, and they honestly shouldn't even have him on coverage plays. I mean, I would rather see Ryan Neal back there playing coverage than him at this point.
I don't know if you saw the Greg Cosell interview with Colin Coward this week, and Colin just said, what do you make of the Seahawks defense? I don't even know if he was asked about Jamal Adams or whether Cosell just volunteered this straight off the bat, which was Jamal Adams is just a glorified linebacker. That's all he is. He's a weak side linebacker, and he just sounded really scathing of what Adams actually is. And I sat there, and it kind of really made me think. And look, I don't want to. People may well be saying, "Why are you talking about this after a win?" The problem is that you touched on it. They've spent so much on the guy. I mean, 2 first-round picks, a third, and a player who wasn't a bad player. This is the thing. Like Bradley McDougald, if you put Bradley McDougald in that game today instead of Jamal Adams, I don't think the result would have been any different. I think it would have been exactly the same kind of game. I don't think there's a difference there, really, between the two. I mean, obviously, Jamal Adams is a better blitzer, but Bradley McDougald's a better coverage safety. So, I don't know. And just seeing a guy, what we're talking about now, if he's just if he is a glorified linebacker, that means you've spent 3 first-round picks on linebackers this year, which is bizarre. And you're paying 118 million already and 110 million already. And you traded up in the third round for a linebacker last year as well. So
yeah, I'll say one thing on that real fast, Rob. I don't know if it would be the same just for the simple fact that if you go back and watch the game, watch Kyler Murray's eyes. You can see that he looks over multiple times when Adams coming in. He knows where he's at. He's wanting to avoid him at all costs. So I think that's where he comes into play, is that he brings that kind of pressure that makes the other guy nervous. But with that being said, it might have been still the same score, but you can see that that's where his adjustment comes in, as he can affect a defense that way. But the fact of the matter is he's just a liability in coverage. And if you're going to give up that much more, you need more for the guy. And that's why I agree with you. But I will say he does affect plays. It's just not.
Well, here's the thing though. It's like Kyler Murray's looking at him and he's wary of where he is. That's fine. If you're giving up touchdowns, that's not good. And what you need for 2 first-round picks, a third, and a player is somebody who is your game changer on defense. You don't trade that much for a player unless it is a superstar, really, or someone with that potential to do it at a premium position. It's the kind of deal you make when you're trading from the late 20s for a quarterback like Kansas City and Houston did for Watson and Mahomes. It's the kind of trade you make for Laramie Tunsil to protect Deshaun Watson. It's the kind of trade you make for a shutdown cornerback who takes away an opponent's best player on defense. It is not the type of deal you make for a player who can blitz well. I mean, if he was a first, second, third round, fourth round pick, whatever, blitzing as a safety, we'd all be saying here, what an amazing contribution. 5, 6 sacks, doing a good job as a blitzer, whatever. All right, he's not great in coverage, you can work on that. No, this is a player that you've spent the house for, and he has to be better than he was tonight. And I hate to say again, I kind of feel like we're going to talk about it a lot. It raises major questions about whether you can justify paying this guy massive, massive money. And it's 3 strikes now. Percy Harvin, you trade big for him, you give him big money, you don't know what to do with him, and he gets hurt. Jimmy Graham, you bring him in, fantastic receiving tight end, try and turn him into something he's not. He gets injured, he moves on. And now we've had Jamal Adams. You don't know what to do with him. He's not a scheme fit, really. He's just a blitzing safety. You don't know what to do with him. And, well, we'll see what happens. Anyway.
Yeah, we will talk about this a lot more, I'm sure of it. But there's something I want to talk about. We can move on from Jamal Adams. I want to talk about this because this guy deserves a lot of props, and I forgot to give it to him. Damien Lewis, man, coming in, have never played center in his life. I know he got pushed around there early, but man, to have him come in and step up into a role that he's never done before, and being a rookie, and to be able to do that just shows what kind of player he is, what kind of mentality he has, and just the versatility that this guy brings to the team. And just awesome for him to come in and make that kind of contribution in a game where we really need someone to step up. So I'm really, really, really fired up about that.
Yeah, I think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. I mean, I would imagine it would have been quite a scary game for him. He's got, all of a sudden he's snapping the ball to Russell Wilson. It helped that Arizona's 3 best defensive tackles were all out of the game, but he still had a job to do, and that would have probably been quite nerve-wracking, I imagine. And although he had Mike Iupati on one side of him, he had Jamarco Jones on the other, so it's not like he was flanked by 2 really experienced players. I'd love to know what happened there in the week. Pete Carroll was asked point blank, who is the center if Kyle Fuller can't go? And he says Jamarco Jones. And yet there tonight, it was Lewis snapping in pre-game and Jones started. So it wasn't like Jones was hurt. So something's obviously happened in practice whereby they've decided that Lewis is the guy. I hope it's only a one-off though, Robbie. I sincerely hope that Posick and or Fuller will be ready to roll. And I think they have to bring a center into the practice squad now. One way or another.
Justin Britt's still out there, so I don't know why he's not on our practice squad.
I can only presume he doesn't. I can only presume he doesn't fancy coming in for a veteran minimum salary.
Well, at this point, he's not getting any other offers, so
he might. Well, he may be comfortable with that. Who knows where he's at in his career? He may well feel I'm either going to play for the kind of money I used to earn, or I'm not going to bother. Who knows? But if he was willing to come in, great. I'm going to mention one other positive, and this is it's a negative positive, Robbie, because I actually think it's a positive. I hate to say it this way, and no offense to the guy. I actually think it's a positive that Greg Olsen probably is not going to return this year. with his serious injury, because I don't think he was contributing much at all. I think they're better off. I think there's two positive things with this. One, Will Disley's now going to be thrust into a more important role. And I think you have to know what you've got with Will Disley, and you have to be able to test him and see that he can stay healthy for the rest of the year. Because Disley's clearly a very talented player who's just had major misfortune with injuries. Now, if he finishes the year strongly, next year you can go, well, he's our starting tight end, and we're going to believe in him, and maybe we're going to pay him because he'll be in his last year of his deal. And that's a player that you keep as a core member. But unless you sort of put him out there now while he's on his rookie deal and test him and see what he can do and see if he can stay healthy, then you're never really going to know that information. Jacob Hollister's still here for $3 million. He can contribute. We saw it last year. There's no reason for him not to see some more time. And let's see what Colby Parkinson can do, a 4th-round pick who previously was rated as a first-rounder going into his final year at Stanford. And it was only the quarterback who, predictably, as I said, has flamed. I made this prediction during the summer. The quarterback that went to Mississippi State is rubbish. And he's flamed out there with Mike Leach in the SEC. He looks awful. It wasn't Colby Parkinson's fault that he dropped. It was the quarterback's fault and the situation at Stanford. Get him a chance, because I think he's got a lot of potential, Robbie. Let's see what he can do. Let's give the young guy a chance here.
I'm really excited about Colby.
So even though Greg Olsen, it's not really so much a knock on Greg Olsen as it is positives with the other 3 tight ends, but I just didn't think we were getting anything out of Greg Olsen, and it was becoming frustrating seeing sort of a big $7 million jog around the field, not really doing that much. And now we're getting a chance to see some of these younger guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love seeing that, to be honest. I would have rather have him just finish the season. I mean, let's be honest, this is probably his last game that he's played. And you know, a guy like Greg Olsen, who seems to be a super solid dude and you know, wanted to come back one more chance just to try to get a ring. I mean, it's not his fault. We paid him $7 million, you know, it's just what we offered him. And, you know, it's just unfortunate to see it. And, you know, they probably weren't using him right either. And, you know, with, you know, I'm sure he was blocking well. I mean, I don't know. I haven't watched game tape enough on Greg Olsen to see how he was actually blocking or whatever, but I'm sure his veteran leadership and presence was, you know, well known and such. So it's frustrating to see a guy go down like that and have it, you know, and just realize that this is probably his last game to ever play. I think that kind of sucks. But on the flip side, there are some positives that, you know, we do have we drafted, you know, Colby Parkinson, who you know, we're super high on, and you know, we give you know, Uncle Will another opportunity to play, and hopefully that guy can stay healthy. And you know, it's a good thing we still have Hollister around, because he made a couple solid catches tonight too. And, you know, we know that guy is trusted by Russ and can make some plays. So we've got depth at the tight end position. So that's great. You know, it is frustrating though to see Greg go down like that. That's not how I would have wished it to be. So, you know,
well, it's not how I wished it to be either.
No, I know. It just sucks.
I think, and look, it's nothing personal against him. I don't want to see him get injured, but I also think it benefits the Seahawks that they can now see these guys. And I
yeah, absolutely. I see where you're coming from. And I wasn't trying to imply that you were saying that. I was just mostly just saying.
As for his pass blocking, I can tell you, I mean, again, I'm going to use PFF because that's really the only measuring formula that we have here. His pass blocking was the best of the Seattle tight ends. He was quite clearly the best pass blocker per their grades, 74.5 compared to 64.6 for Disley and 66 for Hollister. However, his grade as a pass catcher was really bad. So it was significantly worse than Hollister and Disley. And Olsen was ranked overall 46th out of 68 tight ends. Disley was 17th out of 68. Hollister's got a better grade than Disley, but just hasn't played enough to warrant a grade in terms of being listed amongst the top tight ends. But if he continues to play well, he will soon be even higher than Will Disley. So there is some talent there, clearly. And also, I think with Jacob Hollister is another one, because, you know, you need to know whether you're going to extend him. I mean, he's out of contract in the summer, out of contract at the end of the season. So, you know, you've got 2 tight ends there that you're kind of thinking, what are you going to do with them? What's the future of the position? And, you know, they get to step up to the plate now and have a go at that. The other thing that I wanted to mention tonight, Robbie, that kind of I noticed and picked up on, and I was going to put this to you, and people could chime in on this as well. Is it me? Or is this a very modern day NFL thing where the broadcasters have to mention nearly every game how many targets, they have to have a running commentary on how many targets that each team's leading receiver has had. So if you get to the end of the first quarter and DeAndre Hopkins has only had one target. DK Metcalf has only had one target in the game, and that is not acceptable. And let's go down pitch side and let's hear from Erin Andrews on the fact that DK Metcalf has only had a target so far. And let's go across to the other side of the field and find out about DeAndre Hopkins. He's only had 2 targets. Can you believe he's only had 2 targets? And then at halftime, we'll get an update on the targets. And then after 3 quarters, let's just get a check-in on how many targets DK Metcalf has had. And it's like, who cares? Like, I can't remember in the past, we had to have this. Sometimes a top receiver doesn't get many targets. It's as simple as that. I mean, there'll have been games like Julio Jones and Megatron. Maybe they did. Maybe I'd have not looked at the numbers. Maybe they had like 15 targets a game, Robbie. Maybe that's what the kind of pace they were on. I would imagine, just a pure guess, that they didn't get that there were some games where they maybe didn't have many targets. And to me, it makes an issue out of something that's not really an issue. DK Metcalf had a touchdown and about 48 yards, which is a decent night's work. He should have had more because there was a 40-yard pass play that got pulled back because of the refs. And he should have had a touchdown with the one that hit him in the face. And he should have had possibly another touchdown, at least another good gain on the crossing route. So that's a good night's work that should have been better for him. Yet it seemed like all the way through the game, Troy Aikman was really angry about how many targets and then he sort of pivoted to DeAndre Hopkins as well. It's talked about too much. Targets have become too much of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, these are the superstars, right? So these are the players they're going to talk about, and they want to call a game, I'm guessing, where these guys are getting a ton of catches and putting up a bunch of yards so they can talk about how amazing they are. And these are the players that they highlight before the game. So obviously they're going to continue to do that during the game. But yeah, I don't have an answer for you. I guess, I mean, I notice it, but I just don't care enough to pay attention to that. I'm just like, whatever, get back to the game. Half the time I'm game's on mute because I can't stand the broadcasters anyway. So
I think it's important though, because it shapes the way that, the narrative for the week is often set by things that get talked about. If you listen to a lot of podcasts, probably even we've done it this year, you will hear people referencing what was talked about on the broadcast. This happens every week. And if a guy mentions that DK Metcalf has only had 4 targets in a game, and that's not enough, and then they spend a considerable amount of the broadcast talking about it, then fans react to it, the media reacts to it, it must get back to the player if this is becoming a thing, and it can cause some issues. I just think it's not necessary for us to have it. It seems like just because DK Metcalf had a couple of quiet games in year 2 of a blossoming career, that now when he doesn't have 10 targets and 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, it gets sort of highlighted and pinpointed as, people are almost too desperate for him to become the best receiver in the NFL in his sophomore year. When there's no need for that pressure.
Yeah, I'll say this, though. I mean, last week we were pissed that he didn't get involved in the game plan, that Russ didn't look his way, right? I mean, I don't remember how many targets he had at the end of the game, but he didn't get his first target until the third quarter. The third quarter was on a minute 30 left in the third quarter, and I was furious about that. I mean, because he's such a good player, because you want to get him going. And I mean, they said it in the broadcast tonight. I mean, I did hear them say that Pete said he's one of those guys that the more you get him the ball, the more he gets going, the more he builds off that momentum. And so, yeah, he's a guy that you want to get the ball. I mean, there was a couple of times he had some drops tonight, but in my opinion, I want to see DK get the ball as well. So yeah, it's great that Tyler had 9 targets and such, but I would like to see what DK could do with those 9 targets as well. Like he is one of those top flight receivers. And so in a way I kind of understand it, just because of the simple fact, like last week we both of us were pissed that, he didn't get the ball that much, just.
Yeah. But they also talked about DeAndre Hopkins, who has second most receptions in the NFL and the second most targets.
But he was coming off one of the most incredible, Hail Marys of all time. So they probably wanted to, he's coming off this incredible game. Like, why isn't he not getting the ball? Why are you not targeting more? I don't know. I'm just making stuff up at this point.
I just think I don't think it annoyed me. Yes, we talked about DK Metcalf should have had more targets last week. They should find a way to generate some plays for him to do it. I just, tonight for me was not a game to have that conversation, and it kept coming up. It kept being mentioned how many targets he had. By all means, do that when he's having a quiet game against the Rams. I didn't think it was necessary tonight, and I think they're in danger of creating an issue that isn't really there. Anyway, on that point, we'll call it a day. The Seahawks have won, so they're up to 7-3 now, and depending on what the Rams do against the Buccaneers, then they could well be in the division lead going into a game against Philadelphia, which I know hard to think about what that game is going to be, because the Eagles had a horrible loss against the Giants last week. Giants played well. Eagles did not play well. But then they still seem like a somewhat dangerous team with some good players. And, any given Sunday and all that, they are very, very capable of beating Seattle. But we'll see. Should be interesting. And that'll set the table for what many consider to be the easiest stretch of the season before the final two games against the Rams and the 49ers. So going to be interesting. Bit of a mini bye for the Seahawks as well. Hopefully they will get healthy. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Let us know what you think in the comment section, either on the blog or on the YouTube channel. Share and like the video. We'll see you next time.